Do your event videos look like this? Then you're in the right place because we'll go over 9 tips for filming event videos to help you go from this to this. Let's get started. Tip number 1 is prepare so you don't despair. And the first tip in preparing is to conduct a thorough client interview. Now, a good portion of this should have been done during the sales call, but I'd also recommend doing a follow-up meeting to hash out the final details. Most importantly, you need to know what the main objective of the event is and what your client is hoping to accomplish by hiring you. A good question to ask them is, in your view, what would make this video project a success? And keeping their answer as your North Star and general map, allowing you to make better logistical, filming, and editing decisions for the project so they better serve your client's goal. Aside from that, there are a couple other details you might want to know, such as the date, time, and place for the event, access passes, and parking procedures, whether there will be a dedicated company running the audio on a mixing board, the deliverables or edits the client needs, along with their corresponding deadlines, what shots or event portions to focus on and which ones to avoid, a detailed schedule of the event, the availability of a room to store and prepare your gear during the event, map of the venue, and anything else you deem relevant to the project. It's much better to ask before than during the chaos of the event. Once you know the goal of the client and all the logistical details, you'll need to prepare your own gear and operating procedures. These will include the equipment you'll bring and how to bring it, along with any backups, contingency plans for potential last-minute or personnel changes, and your own schedule/game plan to account for traffic and other delays. Pro tip for events in large convention centers or venues, I would recommend arriving 60 to 90 minutes early because sometimes finding and arriving at the filming spot can be an odyssey on its own. Speaking of backups and delays, here's a story. In 2023, we had a project booked in Brandon, South Dakota, and another in Miami, Florida the following day at 6 p.m. No problem. I bought the flight to arrive late at night from South Dakota, which gave us time to sleep and prepare for the next day for the project at 6. However, in a very rare move, American Airlines delayed our flight. We missed our layover from Texas to Miami and had to spend the night in Dallas. After more delays the next day, we ended up landing in Miami at 5:45 p.m. The plane is touching down, the client is rushing us, we are sprinting through the airport and had to leave our check bag and baggage claim because there was no time to wait for the luggage. Luckily, we had our cameras, lenses, and audio gear as carry-on, but my Sackler tripod was left behind. Even worse, the project had a 2-hour continuous speech portion with interviews, so there was no way we were going to pull it off handheld. Luckily, I had a backup, a $150 K tripod stuffed in my car that saved our butts in the production. So, the lessons learned were to have equipment backups and not to schedule projects in consecutive days if I was arriving on a plane. Looking back, I should have hired someone to cover for me. Contrast that with a grand opening event we did this year for Hitachi Rail in Hagerstown, Maryland. I prepared to the point where failure was nearly impossible. I rented an additional C70, so now we had 4 cameras to work with, multiple lenses, a lighting and audio kit in case they wanted interviews, and not 1 but 2 videographers. I booked us direct flights and arrived 2 days early to ensure that even with delays, we will make it on time to the event. And thankfully, the project was a spectacular success. All this planning can and should take you hours, but I promise it's well worth it. Tip number 2, get the right gear. And if you can't afford it, rent it. Check out lensrental.com. We've all seen filmmakers on YouTube making incredible edits with a potato. That's great, but it's not business reality. Gear matters. And of course, I'd rather have skills than premium gear, but at a professional level, you ought to have both. So, here is what I would consider professional gear for recording events as a video production company. A gimbal with a wide-angle lens for establishing shots. I used the DJI Ronin RS3 Pro and the Canon EF 16-35mm f4 with the 0.71 speed booster which opens the aperture to an f2.8. A telephoto and fluid head tripod for speaker capture and inconspicuous B-roll shots. I used the Sackler Flowtech and the Canon RF 70-200mm f2.8. A low aperture standard lens for medium and tight shots to avoid excessive ISO and noise. I used the Canon EF 24-70mm f2.8 with the speed booster which improves the aperture to an f2.0. Professional lighting for on-site interviews. I have the Aperture 300D, 120D, Nanlite Forza 60, and a Nanlite tube light, along with modifiers, stands, and grip gear for the lights that needed. A portable mic for testimonials. I use the Rode lavaliers with both the single and 2 mic systems. You can also pair it with the Rode Interview Go for easier use and a more traditional new style look. An audio recorder to capture presentation audio in WAV files. I use the Zoom H6 paired with a small XLR cable. A drone for establishing shots. I have a Mavic Air 2 and we sometimes use more premium models on larger projects. A camera with 4K 10-bit capability or RAW codec at 60 frames per second or higher for smooth B-roll and flexible color grade. And personally, I would prefer the raw codecs to later modify the white balance, tint, color profile, and exposure in post, since events can be somewhat chaotic and not give you time to adjust in the moment. I would also recommend up to 120 frames per second in 4K. For this, I use both my Canon C70s. Pro tip, I will also highly recommend the filming belt, which allows you to carry extra lenses, your wallet, a water bottle, lens cleaner, microfibers, headphones, keys, phone, and other items while allowing for quick access. I personally use the Tamrac Anvil accessory belt, along with various attachments to carry my in-person loadout. Now, this is not an exhaustive list of professional video equipment, and you can go beyond this by incorporating specialty vehicles, heavier tripods, portable tripod platforms, cinezoom lenses with zoom and focus controls, SDI-capable cameras, wireless monitoring, live stream, robot arms, rails, and so much more. However, the list I mentioned will provide you a very complete kit for capturing event projects. Tip number 3 is to master your equipment. Equipment and skill are not the only things you need to professionally capture an event project. You also need to know how to use your equipment. The best videographers can still struggle with a camera they're unfamiliar with. This is why you need to know your gear. Put in the time, look at YouTube tutorials, buy a course, look at the manual, call the company, and make sure you are highly proficient with your equipment before setting foot on a project. Here's what I mean. Let's use my Canon C70 as an example. Mastering this camera will involve things like knowing what ISO and codec to use in each situation to minimize noise for low light environments, or knowing that the highest dynamic range is in C-Log 2 at ISO 800, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to film at ISO 800 all the time. Because while you gain dynamic range, you also introduce more noise, and not every scene requires a maximum dynamic range. Or realizing that if the client wants an unedited version of the speeches in a small file, switching to 1080p with baked-in color instead of 4K 10-bit in log is the way to go. Or knowing you need to use V90 cards for the high frame rate raw codecs. On top of that, mastering your gear also involves knowing how to quickly change frame rates on your camera, knowing the aperture of maximum sharpness on your lens, or quickly rebalancing your gimbal if you change lenses. I could name a dozen others, but the point is to actually practice with your equipment. Tip number 4, capture a variety of shots. When I first started, a fellow videographer told me that my shots were too close. And he was right. I was too focused on filling the frame and mainly took tight shots at f2.8. This resulted in my footage lacking variety, as most of my shots were nearly exclusively tights and close-ups. Gradually, I started incorporating the wider end of my 24-70 and even more of the 16-35mm. The last couple years, I added the 70-200mm lens, and now my videos enjoy a much richer variety of scenes, all the way from the 16mm wide to the 300mm tight and everything in between. Now, aside from these technical notes, you also need to remember the context of the project and what are the important scenes in the event. So, with that in mind, here are the must-have shots I would recommend to capture on every event. Establishing shots of the venue or location using a drone or wide angle with a gimbal. People arriving at the event, captured with wide, standard, and zoom lenses. Telephoto, wide and standard shots of speakers and candid moments of audience or attendee interactions. Handheld dynamic shots of people and event features. Testimonials in standard interview setups with audio and lights. Specialty or requested shots such as machines, VIPs, ribbon cutting, grand entrances, or anything else your client requires. Branding for your clients and or sponsors, and audience reactions to speakers during presentations. And don't be limited to only these. Do POV for products, give people a GoPro, pass it across the attendees, or put it on an assembly line. Get creative. It's literally your job. I like to have one camera on a gimbal with either a 16-35mm or a 24-70 for wide and medium shots, and one with a 70-200mm on a tripod for close-ups. This makes it very fast and efficient to switch between different shot types during the event. Also, since I use the C70, which has a 1.5 crop when using RF lenses, that means I get 105-300mm f2.8 when using the RF 70-200mm, which is much welcomed when filming faraway speakers without losing resolution. If I had a full-frame camera, I would need to use the nearly $11,000 RF 100-300mm 2.8 to get that same zoom range with a 2.8 aperture. Tip number 5 is to capture quality audio. When talking to prospects, I've heard a couple of times that one of the big complaints when recording keynote presentations is poor audio quality. This is because many videographers simply slap a boom microphone on the camera and call it a day, not realizing that for professional quality, they ought to use an audio device that can record the audio directly from the mixing board to the device, so it's a clean and balanced signal. I personally use a Zoom H6 and record in WAV files and might soon upgrade to a model that offers 32-bit float to ensure my audio is never clipped. However, in order to capture audio from the mixing board, you'll need to cooperate with the AV person. So, be nice and courteous. They can be your BFF in a production. Introduce yourself and ask if it's okay to connect a line to your audio device to record a complete mix. Leave them your business card and thank them for their help. Right before the speech starts, press record and then go film the presentation with your camera. If you want to be safe and make sure you press record on time, simply leave it recording continuously. Just make sure you have either enough battery or have continuous power via an electrical outlet. Additionally, if you're going to leave the device recording all day, ensure you have enough storage space on your SD card to record dozens of hours. Pro tip, make sure to put your name on both your audio device and cable to minimize the risk of someone accidentally taking them. Also, maybe set an alarm on your phone to remind yourself to pick up the recorder, because it can be quite easy to forget. Speaking from experience. Once you have the audio device connected to the mixing board, you can then slap the boom microphone on your camera. This won't be your main audio source, but rather your reference audio to later match the camera and zoom audio in post. But what if they don't have a mixing board? Some smaller events might not, but you definitely don't want to capture the audio with the boom microphone on your camera, as it will likely pick up more of the guy crunching peanuts sitting in front of you than the speaker who is far away. If it's only one presenter, I would try putting a lavalier microphone on them to capture the cleanest feed. If it's multiple presenters or a panel, making switching the mic mid-event impossible or impractical, then I'd look for an audio speaker around the room. When you find one, grab a C-stand or microphone stand and attach a wireless lav or boom microphone to it and place it right in front of the speaker to capture the signal. Just watch your levels and be mindful of the distance, and also keep in mind the battery life of your lav mic. And if you're using a wired boom, ensure it is properly taped to the floor so no one trips on it. This boom can then be connected to an audio recorder, and then you can put a boom backup on your camera for syncing in post, giving you 2 audio sources. Tip number 6 is to have fun, but don't be weird. If you do video production, I would hope you enjoy your craft. Personally, this is the best job I've ever had, and I'm incredibly blessed to do what I do. So, with that at the forefront, put yourself in the mindset to have fun. And if you find the event you're filming interesting, then it becomes even easier. Some ways I use to get myself in a good mood are to play music in the car, watch my previous edits, talk to people, smile, and simply try to enjoy myself. Nobody wants a Grinch behind the camera. Attitudes are contagious, so don't expect to capture laughing and relaxed people if you have a grumpy demeanor. And no, you don't have to be the life of the party. I would personally consider myself an introverted person, so being highly social doesn't often come natural to me. But like everything on God's green earth, this is a learnable skill. So stop telling yourself, that's not how I am, and start saying, this is a skill that I can learn. I'm not asking you to change your personality, just your behavior for the couple of hours you are filming. When on set, make sure to smile, wave, and keep an eye out for people you think would like to be filmed. This is important. You're not observing wildlife from a distance. Get up close, interact, ask for testimonials, ask questions, get reactions, wave so they wave back, talk to them, crack jokes, join the dance floor. You get the point. Remember, you are an active participant in this project. However, there is a time and place for everything, and discernment is key. Sometimes people are deep in conversation and it might not be appropriate to put a camera on their face, and some people are just shy or standoffish. That's where the magic of a tripod and a telephoto come in. You can stand back and inconspicuously capture professional shots from a distance without being disruptive or noticed. Pro tip, make sure you hit the gym and work on your back and trap muscles, because moving a tripod with a cinema camera and a telephoto lens is awkward and harder than it looks. Trust me, you want to skip those painful back knots. Sometimes I want to capture candid shots but ruin it because people end up reacting to the camera. So I simply tell them to pretend that I'm a ghost, a figment of their imagination, and to carry on as if I wasn't there. I often get a laugh and my candid shot as well. Win-win. Lastly, while it's important to be friendly and social, make sure to not get carried away, especially if you're more on the extroverted side. Don't get carried away on lengthy conversations or sit down to eat without being invited. Remember, your job is to capture the shots for your project, not to enjoy yourself or make friends. Be a professional. Tip number 7, get help. I've done many event projects by myself, but having someone to help me makes a world of a difference. For larger events, I nearly always bring either a photographer, a second videographer, or a production assistant. There are many ways a second person can make your life easier. They can help you with logistics, like unloading and guarding the equipment while you go find parking. Pro tip, always ask for the vendor or supplier parking so you're not stuck in the valet or in the busy lot with everyone else. They can help you stay on schedule, move your gear around, set up your gear, hold your gear while you go to the bathroom, man a second camera or another angle on the speeches, or capture B-roll for you. Guard your gear while you take a bite or the event organizer shows you around, capture behind the scenes footage so you can make YouTube videos like this, and a bunch of other things. It's also a psychological relief to know you are not alone and have 2 sets of eyes to avoid mistakes. Tip number 8 is to stay organized. We briefly touched on this on tip number 1 regarding preparation and how important it is to have a schedule, know your gear, and a game plan for the day. However, this goes beyond that. Staying organized while filming is crucial to mission success. This means keeping track of where your stuff is, where you leave your gear, the order of the shot list, and the schedule. Events can be chaotic, so it's easy to leave gear behind, confuse it with someone else's gear, or simply lose it during filming. If you're done with a piece of gear, put it back where it belongs, and don't just throw it in a pile. And finally, tip number 9 is to edit fast. We will have a dedicated video just for editing, but in general, the faster you edit the video, the better. Not only will the client and organizer appreciate it and likely pay a premium for it, but it also allows you to have the images fresh in your mind as you put together the story. Some tips on editing fast include having the flow and idea of the edit in place before you even start filming, having a fast computer and internal SSD, PCIe drive, being proficient in your editing software and using shortcuts, being organized with your footage and assets, pre-selecting the song before you edit and ideally before you film, sifting through the entire timeline and rank ordering the clips in layers from the most to the least important, sending a rough draft without fancy color grade or effects for preliminary client approval, saving you time in case the client wants a complete redo, using pre-made presentation and animation templates like the ones from Envato Elements, asking beforehand for the media assets including the logo, fonts, and colors, and keeping your timeline, folders, and sequences organized to quickly navigate them and not lose track of them later. That's it guys, thanks for watching and I hope these 9 tips help you when filming your event project. Don't forget to check out part 2 on how to edit event projects and make sure to subscribe for more awesome event video content. Peace!